Welcome to Moving Through and Beyond, a podcast dedicated to sharing inspired journeys of redefining life, vision, and purpose after immense hardship and grief. My goal with this podcast is to give you hope and to let my guest journeys inspire you to make the choice to keep looking up. I'm your host, Carey Conley. Hi, everybody. I'm Carey Conley, your host of the Moving Through and Beyond podcast. I am honored to bring you guests every week that have been kind enough, generous enough to come on and talk about their life story, because we all have one. And regardless of how much we're thriving right now, we make it all look good on social media. A lot of us have been through some sort of story. And so I am honored today to introduce you to a fairly new friend of mine. I don't even know how you and I originally connected, Paola, right? Facebook, mutual friends, I think, all the things. But Paola is a beautiful woman who has created her own tribe of women called Fearless Female, the Fearless Female Movement, which I would know you want to share more about that, Paola. So thank you for being here with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. So tell everybody a little bit about your background. Like, how did you come to be the founder of this movement?
Ooh, let's start on 1980. No, just kidding.
Yeah. We got a while.
It's been a while. I started this back in 2019. Honestly, I started with a podcast. I wanted to have deep conversations. I live in Orange County, California, and some conversations are just about like the weather, your purses, where you get your hair done. And I wanted to have the deep conversations like about trauma and healing and spirituality and, you know, really dig deep about like what's really motivating us to be who we are today. And I started with a podcast. It's called Journey of a Fearless Female. And as I did interviews of women and their stories and inspirational stuff that, you know, they've been through, it's always like the phoenix rising from the ashes. Yeah. More people started to contact me and ask me if I was a coach. And I was like, actually, I tried coaching because my husband is the co-founder of Kajabi. So when I first met him, he's like, you should coach. And so I started coaching people with paying off their debt, credit card debt.
Okay.
But then I realized that the debt is just an outlying factor of something underneath.
Right.
And so I really was working on my own healing journey because I do come from not so good of a background. I'm one of 7 children. I'm the first to be born here in America. Me and my sister Lilia were called the anchor babies. And so all my family came here from Mexico, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad had his own business, but they didn't speak the language here. And so it was a huge barrier to be here. And growing up, my mom was completely just devoid of wanting to be a mom. Like I said, I'm number 7. She really didn't really want me. She even told me to my face and still does. I'm 43. When I was 40 years old, she told me, I never really wanted you.
Wow.
She's just doesn't have that motherly little chip in her that most people are blessed to have. And I didn't have it growing up. My dad was an alcoholic and a workaholic, so he was hardly ever home. So my growing up was basically like, figure it out on your own, I'm going to throw you into the pool and you learn how to swim on your own. And I was a latchkey kid. My sisters and my brother tried to raise me, and they did what they could. They're also only 10 years older than me. So an 18-year-old was trying to raise an 8-year-old, they didn't have a clue about like psychology or how teasing or bullying can actually affect you for the rest of your life. And so I was teased and I was bullied by my own family. They didn't understand what they were doing, and I didn't understand what was wrong with me. Right. So growing up, not having that security or that safety of like a mother figure to tell you that you are loved and that you are amazing and that you're perfect and that you're safe. I didn't have that. And I had a mother who would tell me, I never really wanted you. You're a pain in my ass. Get away from me. She would pull my hair. She would slap me. One time she hit me so hard in the face that I had a busted lip and I wasn't allowed to go to school the next day. And I didn't understand. Now I understand understand why, because if I would have gone to school, people would have known and recognized what happened to me. But was my normal. Like being physically abused was normal in my life. Being yelled at, being screamed at was normal. Physical and emotional abuse was my normal. I didn't understand the difference, honestly. And so growing up, that's how I learned to be a human. And so when I started going to college, my relationships and my friendships were the same, were very melodramatic. They were very like combative. And I don't say like I didn't have any fault in it. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was very toxic myself. And so it wasn't until I was out of my in 2006 is what I call the worst year of my life, but it was also the awakening of my soul, because I was in a toxic relationship with a man who put his hands on me and would emotionally abuse me. And I thought that was normal. I thought that was love. And I hid it from my family and my friends. And in January of 2006, he was being really loud. And in the living room, we had a 1-bedroom apartment. We lived together. And I had to go to work the next day. And he had his friends over. They were all smoking weed and playing video games. And they were being very loud in the living room. And I just went out there to say, hey, can you please keep it down? Like, I have to go to work tomorrow. And as soon as I walked into the bedroom, I heard him in the living room slam the remote control down and stomp his way to the bedroom. And as he was about to put his hands on my neck, my friend opened the door. And the look on her face was as if I was in my own Lifetime movie. And at that point, I realized this isn't healthy.
Yeah.
And I grabbed my stuff. I left that apartment and I went to go live with my sister, and we broke up. And during the first 3 months, I was like devastated. I thought I had made a mistake. I thought that like I should take him back. I was trying to like figure out how I could bring back the relationship. And I remember I even went to go see his mom to try to beg his mom to convince him to take me back. And as I sat on the couch and talked to her and told her all the things that he did to me, steal money from my bank account, put his hands on me physically, yell at me, put me down. He would leave the house for, a couple days at a time and use our money to go to the casinos. Like, I didn't know where he was at. I didn't know who he was with. And I would just lay on the couch, like full of anxiety and dread because, I didn't know if he was cheating on me. I didn't know if he was laying in the ditch dead. I didn't know how much money he was spending. Like, I was afraid all the time. And, I couldn't figure out. And so she's sitting there across from me from the couch and she starts crying and she's like, he turned into his dad. And she was like, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. She goes, do you even know why we got a divorce? And I said, no. And she was like, he stole $40,000 from my 401k and gambled it away, tried to like double it.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can't believe he's literally repeating the pattern of his father.
Yeah.
And that moment, that was like my aha moment. If I stay in this relationship, I'm going to be her in 20 years.
Yeah.
So I remember gathering up my stuff, thanking her for telling me like that story, because that was like my aha moment. Like, this is not the guy I should be begging to take me back. And I left, and right then and there, I broke the lease.
Yeah.
I took all the stuff out of my apartment. I left his stuff there. He can come get his stuff. And I went home and I was like, okay, I'm going to start a whole new life. And that same like week, my father passed away unexpectedly.
Wow.
So it was like, bam, bam, one other thing. And that was devastating because my father had never been sick one day in his life, ever. I'd never seen him miss a day of work for having the sniffles or anything like that. And he was gone. The alcohol took the best of him because he was diabetic and he was told not to drink anymore. And he was gone.
Yeah.
And that was like huge eye-opening. I thought I had pain from a breakup. Grief.
Yeah.
Was
of that.
Yeah, annihilating pain. Pain
Yeah.
you can't even describe. I stopped eating, I stopped sleeping. Everything didn't even matter anymore. Like brushing your teeth, like taking a shower, like none of that mattered to me anymore. And that's what I call like that pivotal moment in my life that made me have the existential questions of, what am I here for?
Mm-hmm.
What is my purpose? Like,
Right.
obviously my mom never wanted me. I've grown up in this like emotional roller coaster of life where my hair's been pulled. I've had knots on my head. I've had a busted lip. My boyfriends have put their hands on my neck. What am I here for?
Mm-hmm.
And the
How
pain,
old were you at this point, Paola?
26 years old.
26. Okay.
Yeah, and the pain was just like horrendous.
Yeah.
It was just like I could not handle the pain. I contemplated suicide many times because
Mm,
wherever my dad is, I want to go. I want to go because I don't want to be here.
interesting.
Yeah, and growing up, when you grow up in a Catholic home, I'm Mexican, so I grew up in a Catholic home. You're taught to believe that if you're a bad person, you're going to hell. And my dad was an alcoholic. And so in my mind, I thought, oh my God, my dad is suffering in hell right now. And it brought me into this idea of like, I need to question everything that I was taught,
Yeah.
everything that I was told to be true. And I started to unlearn the patterns, and I started to become more aware of my actions, my thoughts. And in 2000, my dad passed away in 2006. And in 2008, somebody handed me the book, The Secret. I never in my life knew that thoughts can become things. I couldn't understand like how manifesting worked. And
Yeah.
honestly, when I read the book, I thought this only happens for white people. This does not happen for people, because if it did happen to Mexican people, why do I always
Maybe
see
not.
people struggling, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, Paola, I want to stop you for a second because there's so much you've covered already, right? Um, I think it's interesting how you've said, and I've become aware of this lately too, about how you don't know what you don't know. Like what you thought was normal, you thought everybody else's family was like that too, right? It was just the norm. And I think that's a wake up call that in itself,
yeah,
because I just started realizing that about my life, within the past 10 years, and I'm way older than you. Um, my upbringing, I was not abused, but uh, thought that my situation with my family was how everybody else was.
yeah,
Until I started seeing around me different scenarios of how families really were or how they were, and realizing, wow, okay, so this is a little different. So I want to commend you on, looking back at it and going, I just thought this was how it was. Why
yeah.
would you know any different?
And every relationship that I saw was the same. My mom fought with my dad. My brother fought with his wife.
Yeah, right.
That was the same. It was the same everywhere.
Yeah. You're
And
seeing patterns.
and I didn't see a different side of it. And it wasn't like when my dad passed away, I still had all my stuff in boxes because I just moved out of my ex-boyfriend's apartment.
Right.
So I just was like, one of the things that I remember the last conversations with my dad, because I honestly didn't think he was going to die. I thought he was just sick, the last conversation I had with him, and he told me, he's like, whatever you do, don't chase the dollar, because that's what I did my whole life. And he's like, I'm dying with $20 in my pocket. And he's like, I can't believe I spent he was a workaholic. So he spent a lot of his time working, and very rare times with us. And so he's like, it's not even worth it. I'm dying with $20 in my pocket. And then he said, and go travel the world, see what I couldn't see, because I've only seen parts of
Mm,
Mexico and Southern California, and that's it.
yeah.
And he was like, you don't have any kids. You can do whatever you want. Like, go do that. Do what you want to do. And I didn't even think, and I honestly, maybe
Mm,
he knew that this was the end. But after my dad passed away, and it took me a couple of weeks to like get myself back into a place where I was a human, I realized I need to move. I need to move to the beach. I've always wanted to be by the beach.
yeah.
And everybody
Me
was
too, by the way.
yeah, I've always wanted to live by the beach, and Huntington Beach was like 30 minutes away from where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I remember I quit my job. I found a roommate through Craigslist, And everybody was like, Paola, you're crazy. You don't have a savings account. You don't have a new job lined up. You've never even met this girl. And at that time, like, especially when you're going through grief, you do some crazy things, because at that point, you're just like, who cares?
Yes, exactly. That is the truth.
The fearlessness in me,
Yes.
just like, would rather go and test this out than forever live my life regretting never being able to live by the beach.
Right. And don't you think it's interesting, Paola, that unfortunately it takes sometimes a trauma for that in our life for us to get to that place of, you know what? Why not? I mean, what do I have to lose?
I know it's
Right?
sad that we have to get to that place. It's sad.
It really is. And I've obviously, losing my husband and my son, you get to that place where, the things you used to worry about and thought that mattered.
Don't matter anymore.
Right? Not so much.
No. Then you can't take any of it with you. That's one of the things that was a big lesson with me, is the fact that, like, my dad worked his ass off.
Yeah.
And he had 7 kids. He had his own business. He was working, trying tirelessly to make that job successful or his business successful, to leave with $20 in his wallet that he can't even take to the other side. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, like, no matter what money or car or houses or anything, the only thing you can take with you is your experiences,
right,
and the legacy you leave behind. And so I was like, I am going to the beach. I'm going. And even though my friends and my sisters, they were all scared for me. They thought I was going to be like raped and murdered out there. They were like, no, stay in the village, stay in the comfort zone. Like, this is where you're going to be protected.
Yes.
I was like, no, I have to go see. Otherwise, I'm going to die with regret. And I don't want to do that. Even though I was 26 years old, they're like, what do you mean you have plenty of time? No, you don't have plenty of time. You don't know when your last day, your last breath is.
Right.
My son died at 63, and 63 is pretty young. That's really young.
Yes.
So I moved to the beach. I had no job. I didn't know this roommate. We were complete opposites. Like, I am bright and shiny. I like colors like pink and blue. And she wore black every single day. Every single day. She was definitely not my cup of tea. But I lived there for about 3 years. And then I moved to Newport Beach. And then I moved to Costa Mesa. And I've had like a roller coaster of a life there, because even though I had the book of The Secret, like I said, I still did not believe that this would happen for me.
For you, yeah.
When you grow up in a traumatic environment where someone is telling you you're not good enough, you're unwanted, you're unloved, you're annoying, get out of my face, like you believe that. And I tell people now, my clients, like, yeah, my mom abused me until I was 17. But guess who abused me for the next 20 years? I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did, because I repeated her words in my head.
Right.
Over and over and over again. And every time something went wrong in my life, guess what? The first record that I would push play on was, you're not good enough. You're not worthy. You're unlovable. Remember, you weren't wanted. You're a mistake. There's something inherently wrong with you. And so every time something happened to me, whether it was I lost my job, because I did lose my job in 2008, 2009 due to the, economic, whatever. And every time a friend betrayed me, every time a boyfriend cheated on me, every time I got an unexpected bill in the mail, every time I got a flat tire in my car, every time something went wrong in my life, push play on the record.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why all these things are happening to me.
Right.
But there was a time where in 2008, 2009, when I was completely unemployed and like trying to like survive, and again, contemplating suicide, because I'm like, what's the point of life? I went to college. I got a degree. I was the first in my family to not get pregnant in between high school and college. And yet I'm unemployed, cleaning toilets, walking dogs, cooking hot dogs at the Anaheim Center just to pay my bills.
Yeah.
I was like, what is the point? I did it all right. Like, I followed the steps. Why am I still suffering? And in my mind was always like, it's because it's because I'm Mexican. It's because I'm brown. It's because, especially when you're in Orange County and you see all these white affluent people, you think it's because I'm this color. You try to come up with
All those stories.
stories and all
Yes,
the reasons why things aren't happening for you.
exactly.
So, so
Yeah.
here I am trying my hardest to get out of debt. I finally get a job, and I'm making $10,000 less than the job I had before the economic collapse. So it's not like I'm making bucos money. I'm making $10,000 less than I'm making before. I
Hmm.
still had to work on the weekends to pay my bills, and I was working as an Uber driver. And I'm driving this lady. I picked her up from Newport Beach and this really expensive restaurant. And when I was Uber driving, I was trying to pay off $18,000 in credit card debt that I had put myself in because of the economic collapse.
Sure.
And I was Uber driving on the weekends, and I would make myself a quota. If I could make $200 every weekend, that means I could make $800 extra a month that I could pour into my Capital One or my Discover card, and I could pay off my debt
Right.
because I had all these like spreadsheets. I had it all in my mind. Man. And so, and so I get into the car, and this lady's like, to Beverly Hills, please. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to drive to Beverly Hills from Newport Beach. For those of you who are listening, it's about an hour and a half drive with traffic. So round trip, it would have been 3 hours of my life.
Right.
But by taking her to Beverly Hills, it was going to meet my quota for the night. That means I didn't have to drive for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving her, and I always went right after work, and I was a property manager during the week. And so I was dressed up. And so she was like, why are you all dressed up to drive Uber? You know, usually my drivers are in their pajamas. And I said, well, this is my job. I take it seriously. And she was like, you know, you're really pretty. Why are you in here? And I'm like, well, Uber drivers can be pretty too. And she said, seriously, like, why aren't you in a relationship? And I started to tell her about my last toxic relationship. And, you know, and she said, have you ever heard of the book, The Secret? And I'm like, yes, I've heard of the book, The Secret. And she said, you need to reread it. And I,
Hmm.
no, it just didn't work for me. And she was like, no, reread it. She's like, I'm from the Ukraine. She goes, if you've ever been to the Ukraine, there's nothing there. It's like desolate. It's always cold, and it's almost like a communist place. And she's like, but I read that book, and then I would write in my journal that I wanted to live in Beverly Hills, be married to a rich husband, and play tennis in the afternoons, and go to all the expensive restaurants and have all the nice handbags. And she had this cute, you know, Russian accent. It was awesome.
Sure.
We talked the entire way to Beverly Hills. And when I pulled up to this ginormous mansion, I realized maybe she's telling something. Maybe
Well, I'm thinking, Paola, this was like, major divine intervention time for you,
Mhm.
right? I'm a big believer that everything in our life leads us to a point of our calling,
Yes.
right? And so everything, your upbringing, everything you learned, everything you watched, everything that you experienced traumatically, um, every piece of it, and I'm sure you agree with this, led you to this moment,
Yes, absolutely.
right?
I don't have any, like, people ask me all the times, like, do you have ill will towards your mom, or are you upset? Like, absolutely not. Like, even
Yeah,
my family members kind of get really upset that I talk about what really happened behind closed doors, and they're
yeah,
like,
I'm
nobody needs
sure.
this. And I tell them, like, I don't hate my upbringing. It saddens me sometimes because I wish I would have had certain things,
Right.
but I know that I am who I am, and I wouldn't be this type of coach if I didn't go through that. If
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the same empathy or compassion or understanding for people who are leaving a narcissistic relationship, or for people who grew up with abuse, or for people who are going through grief. I
Yeah.
would be able to stand in the darkness with them if I had not experienced my own darkness. And
Hmm.
because I have been through the valley of the shadow of death, I know how to maneuver my way out of it and find the light. And so that is like my goal every day, is my intention, is to show women that yes, you can go through the darkest forest, the valley of the shadow of death, but there's always light, always. And even in the darkest dark, there is light.
Right.
Can't see it because you're covered in so much pain and grief and trauma. And like I said, we hit play on that record that says, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm unlovable.
Mm-hmm.
Something inherently wrong with me, when really there's nothing wrong with us at all.
Right.
We haven't been given the tools to turn on the light or to figure out how to get out of that dark place. And so this woman was the light for me. It was like, here's the torch. All you have to do is light it and you'll find your way out.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I dropped her off at this beautiful mansion, I got in the car and I turned off my app, because immediately Uber starts telling you, oh, there's another person that wants to be picked up. And I'm like, no, I'm not driving people here in Beverly Hills. So I turned it off and I reached over to my glove compartment, because I actually had the book The Secret in a CD. This is how old. The CD where you put, and I put it in my little CD player. I pushed play and I listened to it the whole way back for an hour and a half. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try it again. This time, I'm going to try it again. And so I started again. And now it's 2013. So I'm 33 years old. And I thought, for sure, I have figured this out, right? I'm like, I figured it out. I even got a new boyfriend. I got a new job. I got a new set of friends. And I'm making more money. And I'm like, I have figured this out, until the boyfriend started to be abusive. The friends started to backstab me. My boss started to treat me narcissistically and very toxic. And I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing wrong? Right? Like, I don't understand. I manifested all these things. And my aha moment was when I caught my boyfriend at the time cheating on me, and he grabbed me by my neck and was choking me outside of a restaurant. It was my aha moment. Like, there's something, oops, my phone, my watch is, my aha moment was, why am I here again? Like, I don't understand. I did therapy. I read a couple books. I read, all this. Why am I here again? So I did a whole nother year of absolutely no drinking, no dating. And I dove headfirst into self-help. I read a couple books before, like The Secret and maybe one or two other books. No, this time, every book that came into my provision, I was like, this is the book I'm going to read. I read Robbins books. I read Jack Canfield, Gabrielle Bernstein, Esther Hicks. I mean, I read everything, Oprah, everything that came into my vision. I was like, I'm going to read that book. I'm going to read that book. I'm going to read that book. I went to church 3 times a week. I said the Lord's Prayer so many times. I was like, when is Jesus going to come to my heart? Because it doesn't feel different, So I did this for an entire year. And then at the end of the year, I thought, no, I'm still probably broken, and I'm just going to be alone. And I thought to myself, well, then I'll just be the best person I could be alone. I'll be the best aunt. I'll be the best sister. I'll be the best property manager this world could ever see. And that Christmas, I bought my very first Christmas tree. It was December 2015. And I asked my stepson, my nephew, to bring it up the stairs. And I was decorating it with 99-cent Christmas decorations. Mariah Carey playing in the background. And I was in this state of bliss, of pure joy. I was so proud of myself that I finally could afford my very first Christmas tree. I was in my apartment because I was living before this apartment. I was living in a small studio apartment that I had when I was unemployed. I had a hot plate that I had to cook off of. I had a Honda Civic with the bumper that was falling off. And but now I was in an apartment with a brand new Camry in the driveway. I had an actual stove. I had an actual Christmas tree. I was so proud of myself that I'd gotten to this place.
Yes.
And I was in this place of pure bliss, pure joy, listening to Mariah Carey. I turned around. I told my nephew, I was like, next year, I'm going to be decorating this tree with my husband. And I don't know why I said that.
Oh, great.
I wasn't dating anyone. I wasn't even on any dating apps. I wasn't there. That idea, I don't know why, but I was just so in this place of joy and this is what I teach my clients. When you're in that place of pure joy, you're in complete alignment with source and the divine. when you
Yep.
are in that place of source and
Yep.
divine that you can ask for anything. And in that moment, I said, I'm gonna decorate this tree with my husband next year. And my nephew about choked on the popcorn he was eating or something. And he was like, Paola, you're not even dating anyone. Like, are you serious? Like, where are you going to like manifest this random guy from? I kid you not, within a couple of weeks, my husband, who is my husband now, asked me out on a date. And even then I turned him down. And 10 days later, we went out on our first date and we sat for 5 hours and spoke. The following year, that same Christmas tree, I was decorating it with my husband in a brand new house. And I just was like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did that.
But
And so,
here's the point I think you're making, Paola, out of your story, right? Because we just have a few minutes left. I want to just hit on the highlights and have you be able to talk about Fearless Female is that, you just went to work on yourself above everything else. And I think that's the thing that people miss.
yeah.
That you can change the outside circumstances, but if you don't change yourself from within and get to a place where you love yourself just by yourself, that's the key. That's the secret.
That is the key. That's the secret is everybody thinks it's outside of you.
Yes.
That when you have the house or when you have the car or when you have the job
Right.
or when you have the boyfriend or the husband, that's when everything's going to be great.
Yeah.
But the secret is it starts in your mind.
Right.
When going back to the story where I was like, I had the boyfriend, I had the car and I'm manifesting work, but I was still playing the old record.
Yes. And you've mentioned that a couple times too, which I think is super important for people to hear. And I love the way you put it is that you, even when the abuse stopped at home, you were still abusing you.
Yes. Yeah. I kept playing that record. And it isn't until you fix the record that you're playing in the background because it's constantly going.
Right.
Sometimes it's louder than others, but most of the time you're saying it. When you're passing by a mirror, are you saying bad things about yourself? Oh, I can't believe you gained so much weight.
Right.
Oh, I can't believe you went out without makeup. Yep. Oh my God, you need to dye your hair again? Oh, I can't believe you're constantly.
So many people, so many women, of course, can resonate with this.
Right? You're criticizing yourself constantly.
Yeah.
So the moment you realize that you can change the record and actually change your life, you'll be so amazed. In that moment,
right.
I was sitting in front of the Christmas tree. Not even my nephew could tell me anything different. That's where you can get to the place where you can have anything, do anything, and be anything, and have anything, is when you can get to the place where you're in pure bliss, pure joy, that no one can push you off of your dreams.
Yes.
Like that's
get it.
That's the key. It doesn't have to do with anything. It doesn't have to do with the color of your skin, where you grew up, who your parents are, how much money you have in the bank account, what car you're driving. If you can feel the feelings of what you want in the moment, that's the key. The book doesn't say, be white and grow rich. It doesn't say have an education and grow rich. It doesn't have $25,000 in your bank account and then grow rich. No, it says think and grow rich.
Yep.
Think. The magical power is in our brain. That's the one powerful tool that every single person is born with. And that's the power of your thought. The thoughts that change your life are the ones that you're thinking about every single day. So you wake up every single day and choose fear, anxiety, panic, stress. I mean, that's easy. The hard part is battling that negative roommate that's telling you you're not good enough and telling yourself, hell yeah, I am good enough.
Yeah.
I deserve it.
And that is the hard work that a lot of people have a hard time going to work at and why they need communities like yours, right? Mm-hmm. So the 1-ish minutes that we have left, can you just direct everybody to your community, your tribe, and kind of what you do there?
Yes. So I have a podcast. It's called Journey of a Fearless Female. You can catch me on TikTok at Paola.Rosser. I'm also on Instagram at fearlessfemale_coach. And if you ever just want to message me, DM me, we'll talk because I have many ways for you to work with me.
Well, you are such an inspiration, Paola. I mean, I knew little snippets of your story, but not the whole thing. Yeah. And I know that so many people listening to this have been through similar situations like yours. So I'm sure, and all of the adversities you went through, right? The lack of love in your home, the abuse, the financial struggles, and how you went to work on changing your mind, all such good stuff for so many people. So I know you're going to inspire so many people with this podcast. I
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Appreciate you. And thank you again for letting me tell my story.
Oh, anytime. We'll have you back. And I'm grateful. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Hi, everybody. This is Carey Conley. I want to thank you for listening to Moving Through and Beyond podcast. And I'm here to remind you to just keep looking up. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member. In order to be successful on this mission, I can't do it alone. Connect with me at www.careyconley.com. And don't forget to sign up for my weekly Do It On Purpose newsletter. Let's build this life-giving vision movement together to end this epidemic, save lives, and create purpose.